We're live. I think we're live. Hold on. Let's see.
Yeah. We good?
I think we're good.
All right. Yes, sounds good, man.
Good.
Here we go.
All right, guys. I mean, this is our first live stream. The last time we tried to do a live stream, I couldn't navigate the platform properly because I'm a noob at this stuff. So we are back at it this time with Kris Patel again, and really we're going to talk about like overall just markets and that kind of stuff. And oh crap, I forgot to change the title of this thing. Look at that, man. What a noob. Anyway, whatever. It's fine. People will join. We'll figure out the title later. But idea here is, guys, like we're going to talk mostly about. I want to address some things about Zoom. I had I have RK in my portfolio and stuff like that. So I understand that Cathie has a pretty high conviction on Zoom and some things, and Kris has some good views on it. But I have some like views that sort of go the other way, go against the grain a little bit. So we're going to discuss that a bit. We'll probably address some Palantir stuff too. There was that new video with Alex Karps and Kevin Warsh, I think it was, from Stanford. And we'll talk about the whole Microsoft acquisition, which in my opinion is kind of huge. I think we have some pretty interesting thoughts on that. So we'll go over that, and maybe we'll touch on some overall market perspectives. But before we kick this off, of course, guys, I feel like I have to say this now, but none of this stuff is obviously financial advice, guys. We're not financial advisors, and even if we were, it's funny because people always say that. It's so coy, but even if we were, it's like their financial advisors make their money off of advising people. Like, why would they give it up for free, right? You know what I mean? It's like they'll put out content, but anyway, that's what's.
Yeah, the other thing is, like it's also kind of been proven that when they come on to like CNBC and stuff and they pitch things, they could have an exact opposite position that that could be there. So I think a lot of times, when you're even watching CNBC and you see these guys talking, like, oh my God, I'm so bullish on this, blah, 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 or I'm super bearish on this. That's because they probably have a position already, that they're trying to capitalize and just make the general market like, and I'll give you the perfect example. Like this guy, Bill Ackman, came on last year and was like, oh, the entire world is going to collapse. It's like the entire world is going to collapse. And literally he was like, what? And everyone had and he had all like $1 billion of short positions. And then once the market tanked, he made money, dude. So that's the thing. A lot of times, like you can, especially if you can scare enough people, you can make some good money. So anytime anyone says anything, always do your own due diligence, whether it's us, regular retail guys, people in the industry, guys, talking heads on CNBC, so just do your own research.
Yeah, I mean, like Ryan Ivers is in the comment section, man. What's going on, Ryan? He joined in my test broadcast session. He's like, hey, man. I'm like, holy shit, I didn't expect someone to be there. But yeah, he was saying like he'd rather take advice from a YouTuber than a financial advisor. Like that's me. That's why I even started this YouTube thing, because the past like 3-4 years, I mean, we'll get into the introductions in a second, but past 3-4 years, I went from like barely having any money to just like doing really well for myself, and I wanted to share that kind of experience. And that's the whole reason this channel even exists. It's not to give any advice or anything, right? It's just to share certain things that I've done and track it in a way where we can almost in a sort of like vlog kind of way track that progress as we all grow, right? But anyway, sorry, Kris, you have something to say?
Yeah, I just had one thing to say, and that one of the things I know a lot of people like, oh, retail investors, they don't know what they're doing, all that stuff. But let me tell you something. Retail investors were also the ones that picked up on Tesla, right? Sometimes what happens is when you get into like this whole myopic view, when you're from like a financial background, you're literally just thinking about numbers. You're not thinking about anything else. So you could have a revolutionary product coming out and people are like, well, how come profitability is not there? Like, dude, stop looking at it from today. Look at it 10 years from now. And a lot of really, really big things that come out, they're not based on past performance. They're based on new things. I think the reason why so many people are gravitating towards channels like ours is because we work in an industry and we see the things coming in the industry that are enabling the future, right? So I think what it is we're not telling you, oh yeah, this is going to moon tomorrow, but we're saying this is where the industry is moving towards. And this company seems like they have the technology to get us from point A to point B. Invest at your own discretion, but just letting like, imagine how many retail people could have told you, man, I love that iPhone back in 2008, 2009, man. Right? Yeah. And all we had to do was just buy some of that. How many people were like, oh my God, Facebook is amazing because so many people are using it, right? It wasn't the Wall Street guys who came up with $40 valuation and then they were still, oh, they're not making money. How can you make money? Dude, everyone knew everyone's mother was joining Facebook at that time. So if you were an investor, you could have picked up very quickly. So that's where I would say we benefit a lot as retail investors, technically retail, because we're the general public. If we see something that's becoming more popular, eventually it's going to trickle down to the money side, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not they're profitable right now or not. So like right now, that's how Dave Lee was able to do so well on Tesla, because what he did was he actually approached a lot of people. He used to ask them, hey, what do you guys think about this car? Do you like this car? You know, is it something revolutionary? And every person that he spoke to loved the car, right? All these Wall Street people, they were like, oh, well, it's overvalued, blah, blah. But who gives a crap about the stock price at the time when you have a product that's so revolutionary, right? That it'll grow into that valuation. So that's just my spiel about it. But go on, let's get this started.
Yeah, man. No, for sure. I mean, it's like so many people miss this stuff. But anyway, so let's get to the introductions real quick. So people have been wanting to know like what I do. I think I've released it on a few videos. So let me kick it off first of all by saying like Kris Patel, you know, he's like a guy that basically has helped me out and helped a lot of actually the Palantir community and other communities out with just general information. And he's like a treasure trove of information. He does his own research and that kind of stuff. So that's why I like to bring him on. And I have lots of conversations with him sort of outside the scope of like these kind of things, just because, you know, it's always one, good to have a better perspective, and two, he has a very highly technical perspective and he comes at it from different angles. And the side of it that he goes at is like, he's been doing this for quite a long time, way longer than me. For me, it's like through 2-3 years. But just the type of information that he does provide in our chats and things like that, it's like, man, like how the hell did you get that kind of stuff? And it's actually insightful into how we, or how Palantir or any other company we discuss about is planning to grow. Like it's very on track of that stuff. So, you know, that's why I like to bring you on, Kris, and sort of like, you know, get the exposure. But secondly, he is going to start a YouTube channel. So, you know, as we progress, I'll link that description below and you guys can follow him there. So Kris, you want to talk about yourself a bit?
Yeah, I mean, my background, I've had a varied background. I used to be in the military, and then I pivoted into healthcare, and now I'm in healthcare IT. So one of the things about me is that I try to go towards different trends, and I try to follow it. One of the things about me is I'm a very passionate person. So if I can't find passion in what I do, then it gets boring really quickly. One of the areas that I think that's really growing like crazy right now is healthcare IT, and I kind of want to be part of kind of working in that field to make things better. I can tell you right now, healthcare IT, a lot of it right now is moving towards AI and just implementing new technologies to make life easier. You know, we have a tremendous amount of issues right now with workforce, right? Like getting our workforce, one, at the hospital, but two, how do we limit contact? So the dynamic is just changing, and it was happening even before COVID, but I think COVID kind of supercharged that cycle. So, so yeah, like I've been on the forefront of kind of implementing different softwares, different applications, even EHRs. So I kind of see where the faults are and where the successes are. I can tell you right now, a lot of times, you know, people can sell you software and say, here's a great product, but then you also have to realize from the customer end, how adaptable is the consumer in adopting your technology. The best product doesn't necessarily win. It's the ones that every user can utilize. And there's something that I like to call it just works, right? IJW. Anything that you look at right now, whether it's software or devices, everyone wants it to just work, right? If you have to do additional things to get it to work, people are not going to like that. Even if it's something that's revolutionary that can change the world, if you don't make it just works, people won't adopt it. And if you don't get adoption, you failed right there. So I think a lot of the things that we'll talk about, one of the concepts that I just want to always tie right back into is it an IJW product? Does it just work?
Right. Yeah, that's fair. That's honestly such a solid point, especially as we progress through like a lot of, pretty much everything is connected to some degree at this point, right? The whole like REST APIs and that kind of stuff since the early 2010s have allowed that from an internet perspective, from that protocol perspective, right? So things are generally more like even the really crappy backwards looking things are way more way more you know, connected than they were or would have been in the past, or people would have projected that. But you know, you talked about adoption, so like if you don't mind, let's jump right into it. So guys, like right off the top, I want to talk really kind of about Zoom. Like me personally, like I mentioned to you before, channel is totally about just me learning stuff, and as I progress with some information, I'll share it, and this is part of that, right? I like Zoom. I want to like Zoom. I really want to like Zoom, and I know that I hold ARC, so it's like, Cathie Wood is like super high on the stuff, man. And I get the whole valuation bit. Like, what is it right now?
It's like 40-50 billion dollars, somewhere around there.
It's now $44
150.
billion market cap, right?
Yeah.
$147 is what it's at. Like, I get it from a gains perspective. There's definitely, in my opinion, I think there's gains to be had there for sure. But my problem with Zoom is, what is the end game here? Like, I can see the Palantir end game a little bit. I can see the Tesla end game for sure, right? That kind of stuff, I see it. But with Zoom, like, my question is, like, Zoom is right now, and I use it every day, right? Like, Zoom right now for me is like a workplace kind of thing, and anyone I speak to does not want to be at work, man, including myself. It's like, if you have a collection of people that don't really want to work, like, kind of be there really, and they want to do stuff outside of that, right? How are you going to grow that product past what the utilitarian side of it is, which is just video chat and that kind of stuff, right? That's my, like, number one kind of question. Kris, you want to address some of that?
Yeah, I would say, I think the purpose of Zoom is to connect people, right? Whether that be at the enterprise level or whether that be at the consumer level. They're just trying to connect people from A to Z, right? That's their business. The key is, how do you make it so that it's something that's easier and easily translatable, right? I'll give you an example. Like, and this is just a hypothetical question. You have your phone, right? What kind of phone is it?
It's an Android.
It's Android, right? Android, I have an iPhone, right? One of the things that made us buy an Android or iPhone, as opposed to, let's say, a Nokia back in the day or a BlackBerry, what was it? What was the biggest differentiator? What is the one thing on your phone, if you did not have, you couldn't live without?
Are you talking about right now or generally?
Yeah, right now. What if I told you, hey, listen, you can keep everything, hardware the same, software the same, everything the same, but we're going to take one feature out of it. What feature would you not want to give up?
Honestly, right now, I'm boring, dude. I just call and text and, like, watch YouTube. But so I guess one thing I would not give up is probably YouTube, because it helps me to learn a lot. So probably that.
Well, so YouTube is one thing, right? Here's what I'm going to ask you. What if they took the App Store away from the phone? How useful would it be?
Pretty useful for the sake of a phone, but totally shit in terms of anything else. Right? It's like,
right.
Before it was, I know what you're saying. It's like so narrow. It did the job. It did whatever it needed to do. But having something like the App Store just opened up so many possibilities. And I think a lot of the stuff we do now is accustomed to that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, I get it. Go ahead.
That's what ties Zoom in right there.
But bro, like,
Zoom is building out APIs. They're building out their infrastructure right now. They're building out their applications. I don't know if you know, they're actually integrating with other things. They're integrating with Slack. They're integrating with Salesforce. They're integrating with Epic EHR. So what happens is, there's a natural experience that you have by using these other apps that you can tie into. I'll give you an example of a use case that I just recently started seeing in the healthcare field. That's amazing. One of the things that, doctors have always wanted to have a very open line of communication with patients, but at the same time, you also have to do note taking at the same time. You kind of want to have that face-to-face interaction, but then you also have to take notes, because then you have to go back and try to figure out what's going on. Zoom right now integrates with your EHR to the point where you can literally call someone from the EHR. It opens up a Zoom application. Everything is there. It does a transcription, audio transcription of everything, highlights all the key things, does all the notes for the doctor, puts it right into the application, puts it right into the doctor's notes. And it's so cool that, to the point where literally the doctor now used to spend an hour doing notes after the call. Now it takes them 5 minutes. One of the things that you're going to see is so many use cases start to get developed, because think about all the possibilities. Right now, salespeople are using Zoom right now to do the same thing. All the stuff that comes along in Zoom, like the conversation that people have, there's key words in there that show and gauge a level of interest, right? And basically that can get recorded, and Salesforce even integrates right into it and says, yeah, this is a person who's highly engaged with the salesperson. This person isn't. There are so many concepts and there's so many use cases that are going to be developed outside of just the video teleconferencing, because that's what it is. A lot of people see the video teleconferencing as the end all be all, but I can tell you that's probably the beginning. And if you look at how many applications are starting to get on the Zoom platform, right? And Zoom is actually being very open about it. They're actually opening up their entire ecosystem to build out integrations with multiple apps that we use day to day. I think that is where the bullish case is, because it's what's going to happen is it's going to filter into your entire life. You know, when you communicate with people, like even right now, like me and you are using Zoom, right? It's one of those it just works products. One of the key differentiators between Zoom and Microsoft Teams and some of the other ones is that there's a whole process that a person has to go through to get one thing to work, and Zoom just kind of eliminates that. You know, so the ease of use is there, and I think what it is it's almost become synonymous with the general public, right? Like, think about it this way: when people want to search for something, on the web, they don't say, "Well, I'm going to go search on the web for something." They say, "I'm just going to Google it," right?
Some say, "I'm going to Bing it," right?
I don't know about that, but I know right now people are just like, "Hey, man, just get on the Zoom. You know, get on the Zoom call. That's it." You know, and that's what it is. It's becoming ubiquitous with consumers. I mean, and like I said, I think what it is there's two parts to it that get kind of like tied right into it, which is one is your enterprise and the other one is your consumer. The other thing is Zoom is a profitable company. They're generating almost $1 billion a year in profit, right? And they're reinvesting that into more and more things. I think what it is I would say use your imagination. 10 years from now, do you see yourself not using Zoom, right? And what gradual improvements is Zoom going to make in the ecosystem, like the Metaverse play, in that let's say you're in the Metaverse and you get a Zoom call and the person appears right in front of you. You know, I think that's one of the key things that I really like about Zoom. The other thing is the leadership. Eric Yuan is one of those types of leaders that's always about innovating. Let's do more. Let's build more. Let's get more people on this. Let's figure out how to give people what they want. The other companies that are there, we can go down. I'll tell you right now, like Teams is just, Microsoft is a big company. Teams is just a very small part of Microsoft. Yeah. They're not focused in as much as Zoom. Zoom's business is to get communications done. Microsoft's business is to get more people to use Windows, you know, and Zoom is only a small, Teams is just a small part of that. Cisco, if you look at the revenue for the last 10 years, has been completely flat. Why? Because they're all about, let's just live off of the assets that we have. If we need something else, we'll just buy more and we'll just keep buying back shares. So they're not innovating. And that's why Eric Yuan left in the first place. So I would say you have this innovative leader. You've got a technology that has cut its teeth under COVID that now has become synonymous with the general public. And it's come to a point where I think 5-year-olds right now know how to do a Zoom call, you know? So think about it. All those users.
Like Manny in the comments is saying Zoom is the AT&T for internet age, and like even Ryan saying like the they love the founder. Like I get that. I know he's about that. And Cisco, like, you know, can we just take a moment of silence for their crappy freaking track record in the past 10 years, man. They had such a like a entry into the world, and they just decided to crack. Even WebEx was decent when it came out, and then it just fell flat. They pulled the whole Microsoft, where Teams is basically like an add-on, right? Like when you do any sort of any contracts with Microsoft and they start giving you licenses, it's like an add-on. That's one of the reasons why that works in a way, because it's like it's free, here you go, right? But you were going to finish.
Yeah, I think right now, you know, they've moved from the freemium model because they know they wanted to cast the widest net possible, right? Now what's happening is people are questioning why they have Teams. People are questioning why they have WebEx, and people internally within organizations are saying, "Hey, listen, I know we use Teams, but can we get Zoom?" And the other people are saying, "Hey, I know we use WebEx, but can we get Zoom? It's just an easier product. It's got all these other abilities. It integrates with all these other softwares that we use." And I think what we're going to see is that conversion of people that have been using it for free start to get into the pay model. Right. And eventually that'll cast in. The other thing is Zoom is also innovating outside of that, in that they're starting to kind of work on the Zoom phone product, which is a PBX product, which is like how Cisco right now, when you go to like any organization, right, like any building right now, all the phones and everything are tied into one thing. So they're literally disrupting so many incumbents that have already been doing this, right? And they're tying everything right back into an ecosystem again. So I think Zoom is probably one of the most promising companies out there in terms of valuation. I would say they're a hybrid between software, telecommunications, and even some level AI company. Because now with conversation, natural learning, there's so much development around it. So I think Zoom's very promising. I think it'll do very well, and the valuation right now is let's just say it's still a little bit high from what people on Wall Street would consider to be on sale, but I've always tended to just buy small, like whenever I see a dip like this, just get in, buy small amounts. Don't buy a huge lump amount, because then if it goes down, your conviction will get thrown off again. Buy small amounts, and in the future you'll be amazed at how well you've done.
Dollar cost average, man. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Let me get back at you on that for just a second, right? We compared the whole like ecosystems, and we talked about like iPhone. You're like, what if you remove the App Store, what would it be, right? I get that, and I'm actually with you on that, right? My concern with Zoom is, how do you get people to move to that? Now, the example you gave is actually a really good one, right? In the sense that, for doctors and stuff, it's almost a fully integrated product. But I know, for myself, and I don't know, I don't have the spread as to how many, tech companies or whatever use it versus medical companies and that kind of stuff, right? But let's say, for example, the natural transition for them is to go into big tech, for example, or something, right? Mm-hmm. Where offices use Zoom and stuff, right? For me, I have maybe like 6 or 7 Zoom calls per day or whatever the case is. But like, as soon as the call ends, I don't even think about it, just to be completely honest, right? I get the whole, actually, for New Year's for 2020, I use Zoom, right, to chat with my family. For 2021, like part of it, I use Zoom. Like, I get that. Like, there was an alert to it that's like, let's get on Zoom, even though it only gives you 45-minute in the free version or whatever. It's like just enough to go through what's it called, New Year's and not kind of crap out or whatever. So great, it's totally great. But how do they get people to stay and continue? Because with phones, it was different. Like, people at that time, you probably remember this too. Like, when the whole Blackberries and all this stuff was out, I had a Blackberry. I had all these things, right? And when the iPhone came out, or like any of the other Androids that got better over time came out, the whole thing was apps. Like, everybody wanted apps. Like, there were whole sorts of crappy apps. You remember that app that was like a diamond? It was just a diamond that would spin, and it cost like $1,000 or something. So it was like a primordial soup of random ideas that came together from a consumer product, which was a phone, which everybody wanted. If you ask somebody on the street, random person, like a 40-year-old lady carrying groceries, hey, like, would you like a video chat app on your phone right now? Like, most of the time she's going to be like, sure, I guess, like, it's not as much of a selling factor as saying, your phone that has like, literal buttons. How about you take this like tablet looking thing that has no buttons and have a good time with it, right? I feel like that's why I'm like, where I get the technology, like, I understand they are by far the leaders in terms of what they're developing. My concern with them is how they're going to get these users on board. I thought that with COVID, they're going to start actually like doing more, marketing around the consumer side of it, saying, oh, look, here's the, background feature and all this stuff, which they rolled that out pretty quick. But after that, I'm like, oh, I don't know, like, it needs to get sticky. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I got you. I mean, dude, just think of your own example that you just said. It's sticky enough to the point where you're using it it's bleeding from your commercial life into your personal life, right? Yeah. And that's without any additional marketing on any other products. I think they're still early in their product development cycle right now, to the point where they're still heavily invested in R&D. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day they'll come out with a phone that's naturally tied into that. I think the other thing is there's new technology that's centered around maybe some metaverse, maybe some AR goggles or VR stuff. There's plenty of opportunities for them to grow and use different avenues of growth. So an example, remember I was saying last time, like, what if you're sitting in your car, you have autonomous driving, and you want to take a call, right? What are you going to do? You might use Zoom, right? You're just going to log into the Zoom app. There you go. You're good to go, right? So it's almost like, I think what it is we don't necessarily see the use cases right now. But then the minute new technology comes, we ask ourselves, man, how could I not see this? I used it the entire time. Like, I used Facebook. Why didn't I just buy some Facebook stock? I used Google. Why didn't I buy some Google? So I think right now everyone's using Zoom. Everyone loves Zoom, whether you're a consumer or you're an enterprise company. Everyone is talking about Zoom. I think the valuations went through the roof and they went too crazy because everyone saw the early potential of it. But right now, it's tempered down significantly, right? But I don't think the product itself is very good and everyone loves it. So I would say, from a product standpoint, believe in the product. Yes, it came to us during a time of need, but now I think is the time that, like I said, Eric Yuan will figure out ways to make monetization work even better to the point where they're making more and more money, but then also introduce new products and integrate new things into their ecosystem to the point where Zoom will dominate your day-to-day life. I mean, like it isn't already, right?
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, the usage is definitely high. For me, it was more the sticky thing. I think even like how they rolled out the whole background feature. It was, remember, there were memes and stuff about it, right? Like people having all sorts of glitchy backgrounds, and all these other video chats, they had to like roll something out, and half of it was all crappy. So yeah, no, totally get it. I think as they innovate, they go forward with it. It's gonna be interesting to watch it grow, I think. Do you think that's so? I know Cathie Wood, when she talked about Zoom, she goes like super philosophy almost, right? Like philosophical in the sense where she says it's gonna revolutionize communication and stuff, right? Actually, even who was it? Yeah, Manny was like, it's gonna be the AT&T for the internet age. Like I'm assuming he's talking about AT&T from before, maybe when it split off from like Bell Labs or whatever. But either way, like is that the kind of view you take a look at it? Because for me, from now, I see that, like I can see the potential of that. But for now, I see that it's more so like they're in that product cycle where they're just like, you know what, I don't care what the burn is, just continue churning out like features left, right, and center, and let's test it to see if this is gonna stick. Which I love. I love the stage that they're at.
Yeah, and no, I think that's exactly what they're going with right now. I think the biggest thing is converting enterprise users from the other providers to Zoom right now. I think that's one of the things that they need to focus on because, there's still a huge market. But let me tell you right now, they almost got 50% of the enterprise market share in video teleconferencing, right? And we're only couple of years into it, right? So I think as the years go on, it's going to become a normal part of the business environment. The other thing is COVID kind of showed us that we could be productive working from home, maybe not to 100%, like, being physically at work all the time. But every company that I know right now is saying, you know what, we don't mind going to a 3-day work week, right? We're going to essentially allow workers to work 2 days from home and 3 days from the office. And this way, one, it's a little bit of happiness from the worker standpoint. Productivity is there. They're not taking as many sick days and, vacations just to, take care of their personal lives, right? So I think there's a lot of value that's going to bring. So in order to support that infrastructure and allow your workers, you're going to need video communicating tools like that let you interface with clients, interface with colleagues, interface with your boss. I know right now I have a performance evaluation coming up, right? My entire evaluation is going to be done on a Zoom call. Literally, because they're like, HR is in one building in Lower Manhattan. My boss is at home. I'm sitting in the office, right? So even though I have to do an evaluation before, I'd have to, go to my boss's office. The HR person would have to come, and it's a whole process. Now everything could be done, and literally, it simplifies that person's life. It simplifies a lot of things. So I think video teleconferencing is here to stay. If anything, it's going to become more acceptable. I think the workplace, every commercial company right now, is already like figuring out, okay, how do we keep operations running? How do we capitalize on having the infrastructure ready to go that lets us, at least to a certain degree, have workers be able to work from anywhere, right? And it's something that's, I think Dom said to me yesterday. I was on a call with him, and he said, now the pool of applicants that we can select has gone up tremendously. I said, what do you mean? He's like, dude, I could hire someone who's really good from Florida. I'm not just waiting on someone, who's locally to me right now, So if I find the best person for the job that's, let's say, 100 miles away, I'm going to hire them and have them work, and they're going to communicate with me and do all the work that I need them to via teleconferencing. So now my pool of applicants has grown. Now, what enabled that? Zoom enabled that,
No, for sure.
So
they
I think
definitely started it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Zoom's here to stay. I think it's going to grow. I think a lot more commercial people are going to move in. I think some personal products are maybe coming down eventually. Also, that may end up being really successful. Who knows?
You know the example that you used with the whole doctor situation, right? How
Mhm.
much is that? How much is that really used just from from your experience since you're in the field already? Do people look at that and like, holy shit, this is like something that's absolutely a game changer for us, and we actually need that? Or is
Why
it
do you
more so like,
think?
oh, this is a good feature, let's experiment with it more?
Why do you think Microsoft bought Nuance? Nuance owned the medical dictation game. Okay.
Right.
Literally, right now, all my radiologists, when they do their reports, they're all dictating on a dictaphone and it's transcribing it because they have natural machine learning, right?
Yeah.
If you ask any physician right now, what is the cause of physician burnout? One of the things is just notes and all the paperwork that has to be done. Now, I mean, you do it through keyboard, of course, but literally think about it. I want to have that interaction with you, communicate with you. I don't want to spend time typing up everything or writing everything down and then typing up notes afterward. Every physician hates that. I have never met a physician in my life that said, "Yeah, I love doing an hour, like wasting an hour just to write all my notes and transcribing it back into the medical record." But it's a requirement.
Yeah.
So they have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do it. So they do it. So if there is a way that we don't have to do that anymore, there you go. Right now, people outside of my department started like, hey, listen, I know you guys use Dragon Naturally Speaking with with PowerScribe. That's the product
Right.
that we
Right.
use. Can we get PowerScribe in the OR so that after our surgery is done, we have to write down we have to basically before they have to transcribe everything that happened during the surgery, right, and put it into the notes. So you know what they used to do? They used to either hire a transcription company where there would be a person at the end of the call, right?
What?
That was literally would type everything for you. Yeah, they would type like the doctor would speak, they would type. Like when you go to court and you have when you have like those
Yeah. Yeah. The
stenographer like
transcriber.
typing everything
Get
up.
out of here! No way, man. That's like,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah, yeah.
that's
And
crazy.
that's the thing. Like that's what people used to do. Now, if you have a product that's fully integrated with your EHR and you can have a one-to-one conversation with the patient and have it transcribed into the medical record, dude, that's a game changer. Like I,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
which hospital, I don't know which doctor wouldn't advocate for that. Every doctor right now wants to do more interaction with the patient, less interaction with a computer screen.
Yeah.
So,
Touche.
and that's just my field in healthcare. Imagine how many other fields they are, whether it be in sales, in marketing, or
Yeah.
any sort of other things where you want to have the ability to talk to a client or talk to a colleague and have that translate into something that's usable, right? And also it could provide some more insights into, like I said, like Salesforce, it can provide insights into that conference call that you just had. You can have an entire meeting where it recognizes who's speaking, right?
Yeah.
The level of engagement that person has, right? And also see the potential of that person becoming a client or not, or just dropping off. I'm telling you, I'll send you some links on some of the products that Zoom has, some videos on it.
Yeah.
You'll be shocked. You'll be like, holy crap, I cannot believe that I missed this thing. And like I said, it's still early in this development cycle, but I'll send it to you. And once you see it, it'll open your eyes. Be like, there's no way that this is possible. And then once you get a hang of it, you'll be like, bro, I need to buy some Zoom.
No, I hear you. I've been waiting. To be completely honest with you, I did buy at the
Yeah.
IPO and I sold after the first initial spike because I'm like, all right, video
Yeah.
conferencing, it'll work after COVID. But anyway, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna read more into it. We got Manny Burnaby in the comments, and his wife is apparently a doctor, and he was like literally just the entire time we were talking, he's like, oh yeah, yeah, yes, 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 yes. So basically, actually, Manny brings up a good point where he's saying like the notes is mostly summarizing and putting notes down for the next visit, so it's not just about transcription, summarizing. The thing is actually like I can think of it because I did something similar with natural language processing, and to be able to do that is quite not actually that much of a step. And I feel like Zoom is probably the one to take that if they really had to help
Yeah.
you summarize. And this kind of thing actually bodes well for even the IT side of it. Like there's been a few times where you have to do kickoff meetings with clients and stuff, right? Like that, right? So if you're talking about infrastructure, and actually this is a good point. I didn't get a chance to do it, but like the stuff I do, guys, like I basically stand up infrastructure for companies for the most part. I like for the like big my role, my actual title is supposed to be like DevOps and SRE, which is a site reliability engineer, where in a
Yeah.
sense where my literal day to day is clients will say, okay, guys, we need this project done, and I'll basically sit there and write some code that stands up servers in AWS, Azure, any cloud, basically. Okay, that's my day to day. Now, on the side of that, I've also done a lot of these like meetings and stuff with clients to onboard software in this current role. And everyone keeps asking me, but I basically work for Fidelity right now, so don't get me fired. But anyway, so outside of that, that's what I do. I stand up infrastructure for the most part, and previous roles I've been basically helping onboard products and stuff like that as well, because I was basically a developer before. Now, in this exact sense, Zoom would really come in handy. There's been times when we've had meetings and we've had chats with folks, and we're like, okay, guys, we're going to stand up XYZ amount of resources. It's going to cost you, this much. The compute level is going to be this. This is what the, size of what, like, there's a whole bunch of these specifications that we have to list out. But at the end of it, we need some sort of summarization to say, okay, this is going to be the output of this entire meeting, like the actual like functional output, right? Because you can do meeting notes and that's fine, but it's very raw and no one really reads it. So we did have some like lady actually sit there and summarize the main points, the stuff that the main people were to talk about, and that would be like I forgot what they called it, but that would be sent out to the whole party just as a synopsis or whatever. So I can definitely see how this, at the very least, it's going to improve operational improvement for any organization at the very least. Like if you were to say what is the minimum this can do, it's going to do that, and that's a long-term thing. You're not going to see the real effects of it for like a long time, right? Especially like even the example you're talking about. Yeah. So it seems like Zoom, I think, has a lot of, you brought up Metaverse and stuff like that. I think we'll touch on that as it comes to Microsoft, like when we talk about that later on. What do you want to do now? You want to do the Palantir stuff, or you want to hit the Microsoft Activision stuff now?
I think Microsoft Activision should be a good segue right into it. Like, what is Microsoft trying to do? I mean, they have been acquiring things right and left the last couple of years. And it's, I don't know. I think that they're definitely, they understand what, the thing with me and Microsoft is I always thought Microsoft was, we need to sell more Windows, we need to sell more Azure compute, right? And they always about there was about enterprise. I don't see necessarily Microsoft being almost like, it's almost like they forgot about the consumers, right? They just said, consumers, they're not worth really, too much money outside of the Xbox. But the Xbox was like a Steve Ballmer project, like back in the day, right? God, so it's kind of been like, okay, you guys, and you always say like Microsoft is great at being like a strong number two, right? But recently, everything seems to be like, hey, we need to become more consumer focused, right? Buying a lot of these technologies are not just for the enterprise, but they're for consumers, So I think Microsoft is pivoting, and they realize that, if we want enterprise to grow, we also need to grow our consumer base so that we become synonymous. And they need to have a dominant market share in whatever they do in order for them to, successfully keep people in Windows, right? One of the things that I'm starting to use right now that I'm shocked at how much I like it, which is the Mac OS. Like about 4 years ago, I never would have touched a Mac. I'm like, man, screw that. The operating system's garbage. Like, I'm so used to Windows, After using the new Mac with M1 chip, dude, I'm like, man, I don't think I ever want to use Windows again. It just seems to be such a clean thing, so much easier to use. And I'm still going to use Windows for work, of course. But in terms of like my personal life, Apple makes some really good products, and I may just use this as my daily communicating tool. So I think what it is Microsoft now is like, we need to make sure that we keep consumers in line with us and stay with us. So we better do stuff with it. And I think the Metaverse is like the next big play. So they're like, you know what, we need to buy as much content that's out there and content publishers that have an extensive library so we can stay ahead and, and develop more things. So I think that's why they bought Activision.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to post this. I think there's some issue with this thing. All right, done. Okay, man. Like with the whole Metaverse thing, what is your general thought on it, though? I feel like it's so vague and stuff. Like, do you own like a VR set by any chance?
Yeah, I have a Oculus Go that I bought about a year ago. I wanted to. So I'll tell you a funny thing. I wanted to lose some weight, but I'm one of those people like I hate working out because it's so boring, right? So normally what I do is I'll put up like a TV show in front of like a treadmill and I just watch it, right? And the thing is like I used to go to the gym, and at the gym they had this really cool setup where you could watch TV and you could, you know, walk and run and do that stuff. So it used to be great. But now with all the gyms being closed because of COVID, I was like, all right, well, I need to figure out a way to move around and be more, you know, do more exercise. So I was like,
Yeah.
let me try, you know, one of my friends is like, man, I lost like 10 pounds, like with this VR headset. I just played Beat Saber for a few hours and it was great. Like I do that every day. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I bought it. I started doing it and it worked. It did. Like for 2 months, I was like, man, this is amazing. I love playing these video games. But then after 2 months, like, dude, I was just like, man, my eyes hurt all the time. I don't want to play this. And then I went from playing an hour a day to like, you know, 30 minutes to like right now I'm like it's just sitting somewhere. My brother-in-law was like, can I play with your Oculus? I was like, yeah, go for it, man. Take it if you want, you know. So I mean, when I first got it, I thought, you know, I always like trying new tech, right? And especially things that could improve my life, I'll do it. So yeah, I think the technology is improving. The biggest problem with adopting like the stuff is it's still freaking heavy, dude. It's like you put it on your face and her, dude. You put it on your face about maybe like 20 minutes into it, you've got three main problems. Number one, you sweat, right? And especially if you're doing like physical exercise, you'll sweat, like your eyeballs will start getting sweat. And it gets, yeah. Well, your eyes will get like all humid and stuff. Like that's the first problem. Then you get a ton of headaches. Like they haven't figured out a way to reduce down the headache situation. Like you could get a headache, you know, like I don't know what it is. Maybe the brain can't process everything, but it hurts. So then like it really detracts you from that. So if you think like you can do a prolonged period of time in a headset, you can't. It's unless they figure that out. And the last part, and maybe this was something that was a problem when I was using it, which was everything had to be tethered to some kind of like a computer or something, right? Otherwise it wouldn't work right. So now I think they've figured that out where they've got, you know, like streaming and stuff, but at the same time, you know, you still have like limitations on the battery, right? That'll limit your ability. So some people were actually, dude, I kid you not, there was a setup for like VR enthusiasts where they used to strap a computer on your back, also had like a battery pack, like, and a belt, right? And all of that stuff was connected. So the batteries would run your VR headset. I mean, dude, you had to be a super enthusiast to get it. And then there's like other little things that you could have bought. Like there's this thing called an Omni something where you put on some special shoes and you could like physically run you know, you could run in the VR thing, right? But it's like a harness. And I'm like, bro, I'm not gonna put that in my living room. You know, people think that I've got some kind of like sex dungeon. No, it looked more like a sex dungeon thing, you know, like something that like you'd see at like a BDSM club. So I was like, nah, bro, I'm not going there.
You're gonna come in, people gonna come at your house thinking you're like, instead of Robert Downey Jr., you're gonna be like Robert Brownie Jr., man.
Yeah, like nah, dude. Nah, I mean, my in-laws would look at that and just be like, what the hell is going on, bro? What is going on?
Look at you. I think I look at your wife and be like, "What the fuck are you guys into?"
No, but literally, it looked like that. It was like literally, you had to like have the wires like tied up on like the ceiling, and it would come down. Yeah, because the thing is like you can't have the wires around you, right? So it has to be coming from somewhere. So they would like put it at the top, and like literally the wires would come down and then attach to the headset. I'm telling you, dude, it really looked like a sex dungeon. So I was like, nah, bro, we're not going there.
Like a sex swing or something.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? Like if you look at the Xbox, right? Like those controllers that the Xbox had, bro, that looked like a little mini vibrator too, with like the ball at the top of it. I was like, oh, dude, I can't do this, man. I mean, until they figure out how to like do things a little more naturally. I think the metaverse is still a little further away.
Yeah, I think so too. But honestly, you know, the thing is too, like I have the Quest 2, right? The one from the most recent one from last year or whatever. And it is. I used the HTC, what is it, Vive or whatever, right? That one before, and it was like plugged into my buddy. Like this guy I worked with was the biggest VR person that you could find. Like you would not find a bigger. He had everyone. Like it was like every single one he had it in there. Okay, and the the funniest part is like he would literally invite us over just so that we could like put it on and he could watch us play. Like it was almost on a creepy level. But from that, and that at the time was like what was I think it was like $1,800 or something at that time or whatever.
Yeah.
And the Quest, which is what, like $400 or $299 or whatever it
Hmm.
was, right?
Yeah.
Huge, like, improvement, I think, in my opinion. What we
Yeah.
did is actually we played Beat Saber, and we stuck in like those like the huge like milliamp hour like external battery pack or something, and we just played
Yeah.
it. The longest I played was for like 2 hours or something, but it helps when you
Yeah.
take turns, so
Do
whatever.
you know what was a really good game? Vader Immortal. Dude,
Yeah,
that was
that's a fun game.
awesome. I
Yeah,
played that game. I was like, I bought everything on it. I was like, dude, because you had to buy each episode. Dude, I bought all of them. I was like, this is amazing. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so I
yeah,
was watching it. You know, the feeling of having a lightsaber, like
yeah,
literally pulling things. That was so cool. So
yeah, yeah,
I think there's definitely a possibility where this thing becomes really amazing. It's just let's get the dungeon part
yeah.
out of the equation, with all the harnesses and the straps and all the batteries that you got attached to yourselves. And once we get out of that, then yeah, metaverse will take off. But I think until we figure that situation out, it's not going to go mainstream.
You see that thing? They have that thing where it's like a little cylinder that you sit in, and the floor is like
Mhm.
a weird like bottom part of a sphere. Like if you cut a sphere, it's a bottom part.
Yeah,
Then you can like run it and stuff. It's not.
yeah,
It's getting there, man. It's getting
yeah,
there. But like
yeah.
so Chris G's talking about how the metaverse is with the whole like sex industry, dude. I feel like every time there's any new technology that comes out, it's the sex industry that kicks it off. Right,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
whole Blu-ray HD DVD situation, like what is it? What was it, like CD and beta? Oh no, VHS and Betamax and all the stuff. Right, it's like every time it's the sex industry that kicks it off, man. It's like, so if anything, we should be going along on sex industry. That's just not going to go
Yeah,
anywhere,
we need to figure out what the porn stars are doing, bro.
dude.
I'm telling you, if you ever seen porn on like HDR screen, way different, way different.
Oh,
So
yeah, I can definitely confirm for that. It's hilarious that you mentioned that. When I was in school, and we're kind of getting sidetracked. We'll get back on it, but when I was in school, real quick, just a fun story. This guy I was working with was like the biggest creep you could imagine. Okay, he was like he had DVDs of porn and all like everything, right? And that's not what made him creepy. What made him creepy was that he like want us to watch it like with him,
oh,
and I'm like,
dude,
no. You do that on
you
your own,
got
man.
some
But anyway,
interesting friends, bro.
yeah,
That's some
no,
interesting friends,
yeah.
dude.
But the funny thing is, right? He was like a good coder, and I remember
Yeah.
we were talking about it. And he's like, and we had this project called like this is basically an end of year project, okay? And he's like,
Mhm.
man, you know what we should do? Because at that time, I basically remade Snapchat for fun, right, as a project. I'm like, here you go, right? And he's like, you know what we should do? We should make an app where people can just go on and you could like post your own nudes and stuff, and like people would just like pay you for it. And I was like, get the hell out of here! That shit would never work. I mean, I could see it working, but like I can't do that. Like, what am I gonna tell my—
OnlyFans,
yeah.
OnlyFans.
This is like 7 years ago or 8 years ago. I'm like, man, as soon as the OnlyFans started going off, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I even looked at the founders to see if this guy was there. But, I don't know. Anyway, fun story.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, the metaverse, I think it's got like actual real world implications too. I feel like people, like you're right with the whole entry point into the Oculus and all that stuff, right? It's a little tough to swallow just because it does give some. My wife gets headaches all the time, so I totally get that. But like as we progress into the whole, even the workspace type of thing, Oculus actually has this thing where I don't know if they actually it's working or whatever, but they have this thing where you can actually, it's like a live thing. You can read your emails and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. So I feel like there's something
Mhm.
there. It's definitely far out. I feel like it's at least 5 to 6 years out, just for the most part.
I think
But
I think what will help the transition is if you look at Ready Player One and all those other things, right? When you saw that, right? I would say to you, we need to figure out a way to connect the brain to the headset
yeah,
without the physical motions. Right now, imagine putting a headset on and literally as you're thinking, it's happening, right? So you think about running, the character runs. You think about raising your hand up, the character moves their hand up, right? That physical us moving is probably not going to work. Like, so they need to figure out a way to interface the brain with the headset or with the feature, whatever they end up, goggles, whatever you want to call it. So that's why, like, if you look at right now with the whole Neuralink thing, maybe that's what that's what it'll do. I don't know. I mean, that, like I said, 10 years there. I remember I saw this maybe like 5-6 years ago. There was like a TED talk that this lady did where this person would put this thing on like their head, like, and it had like different sensors around there, and those sensors kind of read what you wanted to do, and basically you were able to control a ball on a computer based on your thoughts, right?
yeah.
So I think that is where we need to move to in order to get the metaverse to work, right? If the metaverse is going to work, we need to make it so that you could be sitting in a room in a chair, put the headset on, and still be able to participate naturally in the metaverse.
That's true. That's true. That whole
Yeah.
entry point needs to be smoothed over for sure. I think that
Yeah.
to at least get mass adoption for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
and with the whole like Microsoft thing, I think their primary play, I think, is to actually compete with Stadia and Google.
Yeah.
And I think they have like Call of Duty itself is going to just rake them in tons of money with that, right? On top of that, I think, yeah, I mean, I can't wait for it, man. To be honest, if they go after Stadia, which by the way is a fantastic product, like I use it all the time.
Yeah.
If they just need like first person shooters and something that's a little more competitive, right now they're competing more with Nintendo with like kind of just like those kind of games, but it is what it is. But Microsoft, I'm telling you, I called it in that video too. They're like totally comfortable just taking second place and just turning their guns on all the stragglers and just like picking them off one by one because they got the resources, but they know they don't have like the startup level, like the Palantir level, like the Tesla level engineering talent.
Mm-hmm.
They have a few core engineers who are just elite, but like those guys are never leaving because they're getting vested options like up the ass, right? But outside of that, it's like they don't have the talent, so they're like, you know what? We have the resources, we have the guns, so you go. Like whoever is going to take go make me a lane, and I'll be the 18-wheeler behind your sports car, and I'll just start slowing everyone else down. So I mean, I think this actually kind of weirdly segues into her. If we moving on to the Palantir side of it, right? It segues into that because I think somewhere in the future, a few of the viewers called it out too. But I was saying how like in the future, it would potentially be better if somehow they partnered. Now, just to clarify though, I know Wejo and they do this whole thing with Azure and stuff. They're not direct partners, guys, right? So what they're actually doing is Wejo has Azure infrastructure, and Palantir is like basically the operating system that operates in that space. It's not like they're direct partners or anything like that. So at least that's what I think. I don't know, right? Like we don't really know, but from a traditional sense of how their like IT infrastructure works, it's usually like it's going to be in some cloud, right? Azure, AWS, or GCP. So that's usually probably where that's
and that's what Palantir always says: bring your own compute, bring your own stuff. We're not going to do it for you. We're not your cloud provider. Whoever your cloud provider is, we'll work with them, whether it be IBM, Azure, Google, whoever. Bring them all on. Let us work with it, and we have no intention. And that's the other thing. They're not trying to compete with the cloud providers. I know some people are like, well, what if they started their own cloud? Why? Why?
Too late for that, man.
The amount of infrastructure investment that you would need, especially really late in the game, it wouldn't make sense to do that. So I think what it is right now they're just like, look, we understand the necessity to be vendor agnostic. You bring your own compute, we bring our insights, and we'll combine it and we'll get you a great product.
No, absolutely. I'm totally on board with that. So Blake Anderson wants us to give some sort of prediction. We can't really give predictions, man, but let's touch on that real quick. I think the Palantir is at what, $13.53 or 47 cents, wherever you look at it. Market cap is around 27 billion at this point. So I'll tell you what I'm doing, right? This is just what I'm doing. Don't take this as investment advice. And I've said this on some of my videos, right? But really, guys, right now I have a huge tax bill coming up. COVID was a blessing in disguise for me in terms of like business and stuff, work, and really there's a lot of like things I have to do for paying taxes. So I have a lot of cash waiting just to pay taxes, and it sucks, man. I'll be honest with you. At this price right now, in my opinion, if I had any spare cash, I would buy it. And I did buy actually around 16. I bought a little bit, like not too much. I got into a small position, but at this price, I would. I was gonna say like when it was dropping before, I was waiting for around 17 for me to take another position or whatever, or buy another like small chunk of stocks. But the thing is, I don't know. Like right now, I want to make sure that I have enough money to set aside. I'm keeping powder dry just because tapering hasn't even come out yet. Right. And maybe we'll touch on this after or whenever you feel like, Kris, with the whole market stuff. But tapering hasn't come out yet. I know that a lot of that is potentially priced in, but we're potentially going to see like 2 or 3 hikes. I don't think it's going to be 3 or 4. I think maybe be 2. But the second one is going to be really indicative as to how the market reacts. Because the way I see it, it's like people for the most part are freaking out over this. So I'd rather keep some powder dry. I'm of the type, and this was another viewer's like question, right? I'm of the type that I don't want to catch the bottom. Like I'm not trying to catch a falling knife, right? I'd rather catch it on some form of confirmation, right? By the way, Code Strap is in the comments. What's going on, man? But yeah, like I'd rather catch it in the as some confirmation comes out, right? Like again, if you are good at catching falling knives as it's like at hitting the bottom, then you shouldn't be asking us. Just do it yourself, kind of thing, right? What's your thoughts on that?
I think from an investing standpoint, I think what it is we're definitely going to see still some more bloodletting come out of the market. Just don't really know how much more.
Yeah,
What happened is we had a lot of people jump into the market. So there's been a lot of retail participation. And when you have retail participation, retail gets emotional. And so, they jump in, they jump out. I think right now there's a lot of fear out in the market right now. And what's happening is really good companies are getting thrown under the bus along with the bad ones. There's tons of bad companies out there that should not have deserved the valuations that they had. A lot of SPAC plays were just BS companies that, said, "Oh yeah, we have this, we have that," and really aren't producing much in terms of growth or revenue. So I think we're at a point right now where the market is still digesting a lot of stuff. The one thing I would say is that, the Fed has gotten inflation wrong so many times. What's to say that they don't get it wrong this time, right? Where maybe within the next 3 months, inflation starts to come down significantly. I mean, all the factors that if you look at from a macroeconomic level, you can see that, things are going to start coming back to a new normal. An example is right now, if the market is going down so much, a lot of people may cut back on spending a little bit, right? With COVID, with like reopening, right? With, let's say, Omicron dies down, reopening happens, more people go back to work. That means that there's wage competition again, right? So labor participation goes up. There's more competition for workers, which means that workers' pay, well, it won't come down, but it won't grow as fast anymore, right?
Yeah.
If supply chain issues start to get resolved, that'll also be another big thing. I think a lot of companies right now, they're front loading their supply chains because they're like, we want to make sure we have adequate supplies. But businesses are really dumb in that regard, where they'll overbuy something just to make sure that they have product. So now if you end up with all this extra stuff, you're going to have to sell it at a discount, right? Which means it'll end up being a deflationary thing again, right? The other thing is a lot of people seeing that there's inflation, that interest rates are going to rise and stuff. They may say, yeah, you know what, maybe we're not going to spend as much money this year because we don't know what's going to happen. Right. So I think naturally just talking about raising rates will kind of tamper inflation. And the key is it's also an election year, right? I'm sure that from the government standpoint, you don't want markets free falling, right? So I think that the Fed, if they're really pragmatic, what we're going to see is we're going to see a rate rise probably in March. And then people are going to say, okay, is inflation going up or down, right? And if inflation is down, they're going to say, well, maybe we'll wait until September for more data. If inflation stays tempered, maybe we'll wait till December.
Yeah.
Right. Because right now we're still trying to economically get to a point where we've recovered everything that we lost during COVID. Those are years of productivity that, that you need to get people back on. So I think right now, we as investors just need to take a wait and see approach. I know the patience is probably the hardest thing you can do in times like this, especially when you see markets go down, and either you have one of two feelings. One, you feel like a bag holder because you bought at a higher price. And trust me, we all feel like that. And two, you feel this anxiety that, man, I really need to catch the bottom. No one can time a bottom. It's even Warren Buffett I think one of the quotes that he has is, I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, but I can tell you what's going to happen 10 years from now. And I can tell you some of these companies are going to be huge in 10 years. So whether you're paying a little bit extra right now is not going to make a difference. I would say just, use investing strategies that give you some comfort, whether that be DCAing a little bit, which is what I usually do. Investing in some indexes, because when you're in an index, the chances of going down significantly are diminished because you have some stalwarts from other industries. Like, what I mean by index, I mean like a broad index. So
like
you have other,
right?
Yeah. So just because tech is down doesn't mean that energy is not up. Energy is up, so it'll cancel it out, right? Overall, that's one of the main philosophies of index investing, which is you'll have points where there'll be defensive stuff that will go up, and then you'll have things that are growth things that'll go up. But overall, you'll see a consistent return over a long period of time. So in times like this, maybe if that's what you feel, that's what you need to do. I think everyone's investment journey, you should have different options. I'm still young, so I need to be in growth. I still have at least another 30, 40 years to go before I can retire. So even if I have a couple of bad years under my belt, it's not gonna make any difference, because the 10 years that I have that are growing are gonna more than make up for that growth. And so so I think right now people need to just woosah, relax, stop opening your Robinhoods, your Webull accounts like every day and looking and just crying yourself to sleep. That's not going to help. If anything, that'll probably make your situation work. Don't be in like options or margin that time works against you, because that's what it is, right? When you're in options, time is your enemy, especially if you're on the long side of things. And same thing with margin, because if the price of something that you bought goes down significantly, you don't have the time to like just wait it out until things go back up again. You get hit with a margin call, they'll sell your stuff. So right now, I think the best thing to do is just woosah, keep some money on the side, relax, right? Find those companies that that are part of your life, that you use every day, that you see in 10 years growing to even more part of your life. Think about things that you just can't live without, and buy some, buy a little bit and just keep adding to it.
And on that point, like, again, guys, we're not advising you to buy anything, right? But like at the same time, what I do right now, I have no money. So what I do when I don't have money is the time I would normally spend freaking out, I'll just do some research. Really, that's like the best thing you could do. Instead of doing nothing and just freaking out with everything being red, and everything is red. Really, that's the problem, right? It's not like just like one or two companies. Like freaking Tesla is red, and they're gonna just report like a record, earnings and stuff soon, actually in a few days. But if something like Tesla, which is like an Uber growth company at the very like start of the absolute crazy ramp that they're gonna go on in the next like 5-6 years, why would you expect Palantir or anything to be up in any regard, right? Okay, we'll chime in. We'll go into the Palantir side of it. I know that there's a few things that we can probably address there, but before we just to touch on something here. So Coach App was talking about the whole cloud situation. He mentioned that AWS control plane. I'm reading his quote here. AWS control plane is. By the way, guys, before we continue, Coach App is he's like pretty technical in terms of like what he describes. So please feel free to go ahead and check out his channel as well. Like if you really want to start, I get into some aspects of Foundry and things like that, but his video is really, really, really informative. So feel free to go check that out. But he mentions because AWS control plane is shite and has developers running for the hills. See Bristol serverless cloud. So basically he's saying there's an abstraction layer running on top of multi-cloud architecture. This is actually very true. So I worked for this data center company that did exactly this. The whole a lot of like some time ago, and actually in some cases still now, just to give you guys some scope of it, folks actually go in and literally click on the cloud platforms like in AWS console or Azure console or whatever, right? There's lots of stuff you can build on top of other APIs. The one I particularly built was surrounding like HashiCorp and that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of abstraction you can do from there, just because I think it's gotten to a point where some of the offerings and even just the UI perspective of some of the cloud providers is really stagnant. And at this point, like it's kind of ubiquitous everywhere. So they're kind of just not really improving too much of it. And it's really just a pain from the technology side. But that's too much in the weeds. Maybe we'll get into that another time. But anyway, yeah. So moving on to Palantir and Alex Karp. You saw that new interview, right?
Yeah, I thought it was a good interview. I think he really outlined some of the things that people outside of, especially people in Wall Street really wanted to hear, which was that they'll go into different verticals, right? They don't mind modularizing Foundry a little bit so that they can sell it more and get more outreach. And I think I was watching Coach Stroud's video, and I totally agree with the guy. They really need to do a better job when it comes to developers, because everyone keeps saying, they keep saying, oh, we have this great product. Yeah, that's great, but you need other people to say that too. You need other developers to get onto the platform and say the same thing, and be the people that talk to their CTOs and talk to their CEOs and saying, hey, we need to pilot this. We need to try this because it's a revolutionary product. Great products don't necessarily translate into a great business unless you have a lot of people, with developing that thing, right? So right now, I think one of the things, and I totally agree with Coach Strap. One of the things I'm literally going to be focusing in on when it comes to Palantir is I don't care how many partnerships you have with company X, Y, and Z, how many SPAC investments you have. I'm going to see what are you doing from the developer standpoint to get your code out there so that more people understand it, use it, and push for it from an organic way. Like even one of the people that we speak to, he was like, yeah, I'm trying to get Palantir onboarded into our organization, right?
Yeah.
And right now, like I said, it's very hard to do it. And that's one of the things that, they need to really open themselves up. If they don't open themselves up, I think in the next couple of years, I'm going to be the same thing. I'm going to be out because it's not going to be something that I see growing to the potential that I want it to grow to. Right.
No, for sure.
So,
and just to piggyback on that point, the actual growth of the company is, I think, pretty good, even with or without that. But the problem is, this is what people don't understand. This is what people really, really don't get. Right. What you see is the end result. Like what you see in terms of like what they report and all these things is the end result of all of this work that goes involved. But in between are basically a bunch of grungy developers just sitting and hating their jobs, but loving what they do, right? Like hating place they work, but loving what they do. But if you don't actually give them tool sets to actually help them move forward, and one big thing, and honestly, I don't want to get too technical here. I want to just make sure people are sort of on the same page. But one thing that they can really just start off with is we don't know because everything's behind a wall, but just things like documentation or just better, something like that, right? Because and I'll give you an example. HashiCorp, right, is a company, and those guys are public now too. They make some pretty good products, but their documentation very recently started to get better, but for a long time was total garbage. Like you basically, if something failed, you basically had to sit there and troubleshoot for a while and just hope for the best. And sometimes it's like rolling a dice and just keep running it over and over again, right? So the developers actually that are in the middle are the ones that are kind of, ferrying this process through, right? So from the business all the way to the consumer, whoever is actually consuming this product, they're the ones who are doing a little bit of the grunt work. I'm not saying give them credit or anything. I'm just saying if you want something to really scale in terms of a business side and from a tech side and the adoption side, a really easy place to start is give the developer something like an SDK or I think I don't know because I haven't dealt with Palantir, but I'm sure they have some kind of SDK for the people they work with. In my opinion, I think they should do something that's more of like Tableau did this, right? Tableau did this where they're like, here, come try our product. Sure, I know it was more of a visualization tool. I get it, but something, like maybe one or two modules that they want to modularize Foundry, right? And that's fine. So by the way, guys, if those of you who are non-technical, modularization is just like, so say if you have like one or two feature sets, you're going to turn that into an actual functional, like pickable thing. And you're going to either add that as an option, or you're going to allow for whoever the user is to pick that as something they can use down the line. Okay. But these kind of modules, right? If they even forget Foundry, like spin it off as something, a different name or whatever, right? Like whatever, something like that. If they perform or put up like a cloud version where you can just go in and fool around, most of it's going to be absolute garbage. Developers like to do some dumb things with free stuff, right? But at the end of the day, they're gonna actually like it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is why you get a lot of people, and let's say that too, but developers like to like put Doom on random, machines and start playing and stuff. But we do stupid things, but we do it out of a reason to test and make the product better, right? So, and Palantir has the capability to do that. It's like, I don't know why they wouldn't eventually focus on that. I'm not looking for that now. They already did the certifications bit. I think that's a big sort of step in the right direction. Probably next year, I'm hoping that they're going to do a little more events, like maybe they do some sort of like more demos and things like that for the most part. And then the year after that, they have to do something that's a little more catered to devs.
I'm just going to put an analogy out there because I think a lot of people will understand an analogy. Think about right now, Microsoft trying to sell you Microsoft Office, right? It comes with all these different tools. You have Excel, Word, PowerPoint, blah, 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 all sorts of things. So when you go and you try to sell this to an enterprise, you're saying, I have this great thing. It's got all these functions, right? And they're just like, there's so many things. Like, what? I don't see, when you try to sell the entire thing, it doesn't make sense. But let's say you sold just Microsoft Word by itself, right? The company loves it. And then you sell them Excel. The company loves it. Then you sell them PowerPoint. The company loves it. And they're like, man, we just need to get the ecosystem. Let's just get all of them because one of it's going to really make sense for us. So let's just get everything because we're already paying so much money. That's the benefit to doing small and then going up. So it's almost like Modularize, sell a small thing, and then they'll say, okay, we have an additional use case. Oh yeah, we have a product that can do that. Here you go. Oh, we have another use case. Here you go. And so then you can sell them, eventually say, look, I know you're buying small chunks, buy the entire thing now. Let's see.
Yeah, I know that's true. That's true. I mean, there's just two ways to get adoption to devs. One is, you basically force it down their throat, which is what Microsoft used to do for the most part. Now it's a little bit better, but whatever. That's why a lot of times people used to actually hate Microsoft for a while. And the second option is do something open source or partner with the open source community, or just some kind of like free SDK that you can just do something stupid with, right? I know, honestly, like I can attest my entire career to just doing dumb things with free stuff, so like free SDKs and stuff. So it is what it is. We learn, and honestly, at this point, when you do that, you are able to. It helps hiring too. This is what I don't understand. People don't get, right. This helps hiring. Like when you tell developers that you care about like the stuff they care about, then they want to work for you. Now, I don't know about everybody, but I'm sure most folks who want to work here, either have some kind of like cynical thing. Like I want to work there because I'm like, what do they do, man? Like I want to be behind the curtain, right? But it helps hiring in that sense, especially for technical staff.
Yeah.
So, But yeah. So on the Alex Karp point, though, I think this interview was, for me, it was good because like we're talking about the whole modularization of Foundry. I think that was kind of an important piece because I get the fact that they're trying to build like a massive sort of ecosystem, and I totally get that. But I do think that to get to their final goal, they need to address some of the existing business models, even though it's not really what they're like setting out to do. If we believe everything they say, right, that they're going to do, things are not going to look the same, right? Microsoft, SAP, CRM, these guys are going to have to compete in different ways than they are currently. And instead of competing with each other, it's almost going to be a different race that they're going to run if they say what they're going to say is going to happen. But the problem is for them, and I address this a lot, right? And I think Alex Karp maybe sees this, especially now that they've started to hire salespeople. The problem with like SaaS in general is it's, apart from the tech, there's a huge relationship component, right? There's a huge like people, there's a huge human component. Like in one of my videos, I described it. We've looked at 3 or 4 managed services products, and I knew which one was the better one. It was cheaper, it was better in every way. The integrations would have been better, but they still decided to go with the other one because of some seedy relationships that they might have had, right? So, I mean, like, I think Karp is starting to realize this. So they have to play the game right now, in my opinion. They're a little early, like they're coming out a little hard. And they're saying, oh yeah, we're going to change everything. And I think, Kris, you alluded to this before too. Like their real, like, competitor from a long-term perspective is probably Google, right? Like it's really their sort of like, they don't really like them, to be honest. And like you were mentioning how Karp doesn't like how he does the whole government contracts and stuff like that from Google's side of it. But I think that's their final sort of like final boss that they'll face. But right now, they really, really, in my opinion, have to at least do something for the current business model, but also continue developing Foundry. And I think they have the capability to do that. And that's probably what Alex Karp was addressing. At least that's what I got from that.
No, I agree. That's what I got as well. Like I said, I think 2022 will be a year that I think we're going to see some more scaling happen. But like I said, I'm going to be looking at that developer community. I want to see that they're willing to open up their technology to the point where people can actually scrutinize it, right? It's one thing to say I have a great product, but what do other people say? Other people that aren't under gag orders, what do they say?
Yeah. Actually, so in the comment section, the guys are talking about like AI and ML, right? Actually, that's a good point. So this is one of the reasons I'm kind of bullish on the company, just because, see, everyone's got ML. Everyone has got some form of like machine learning. I think I worked for I did a project for like a toy company that was doing some form of machine learning. So like it's kind of, it's everywhere. There's if you guys really want to learn about it, there's good Medium articles and stuff like that about it. It can get pretty technical, but the point is it's everywhere. The problem with it is most of the time it's used as some kind of like a marketing gimmick, and they're like, oh look, this is powered by ML, when really it's just like a predictive function or something really, really basic, right? It's not exactly something that's super like gonna blow your mind or anything. It's just, it does the same thing as anything else. It's just using Python or something stupid, right? So I think with Palantir, with the whole edge computing stuff, that's what gets me going, man. Because that stuff it's actually a very hard engineering problem. It's not something, it's not as simple as, let's just get some software to run on the small device. That in itself is a very complicated issue. So as they progress to that, and I think Costrap mentioned it best, which was more decentralization of this whole entire kind of system. That I think is where the money's at for me. For me, that's why I'm investing in it, because I see the whole edge computing bit, especially from the defense side of it, it's going to help for sure. But even from a general infrastructure side of it, it's going to do absolute wonders. So maybe I'll touch on that.
I was trying to explain to my brother, like not Palantir Foundry. I was talking to him about some of the stuff being in the military. I was talking about it to him about Gotham, right? And I was like, how do I explain this to him so that he could understand? And I was like, I remember me and him used to play Brood War, right? Like StarCraft, right? And I was trying to just say, well, how great was it in Brood War when you were able to kind of like command a whole bunch of things, get a bird's eye view, and then as you discovered new territory, the fog of war started to get cleared up, and then you were able to make some calculated decisions to the point where you could win, right? Yeah. Think about that for the government, where you actually have real-time information. You can see the health of your units. You can see where your units are on a map, right? You can organize units to do things and set macros so that they would go attack from one angle and then attack from another angle, right? So think about that. So I would say Palantir is creating real-time strategy, enabling real-time strategy game for the military by being able to connect to all these different things, whether that be units, whether that be machines, whether that be your production, because you had the mine to produce to get more units, right? So there was a supply chain element involved. Guess what? Palantir does that too, right? So I would say that Palantir is literally creating a real-time strategy game. But honestly, in real life,
like a video game. I know it looks like one of those like Call of Duty waiting screens or something, right? But on top of that, like the Gotham, the whole thing that they're trying to do is actually remove processes, right? The entire platform is designed from a commercial side of it, right? They're trying to minimize as many data scientists as you would need. Forget data scientists, even just data pipeline guys that do like ETL processes and stuff, right? Because half the time, once they're done this process, when it gets to the end step, if there's some issue with it, it goes back, and then these things are it takes a week, and then you're sitting there, and these guys don't have context. The ones that are doing the data side of it, they don't really have too much of a context. The analyst is actually making the decision. They actually know what they want, but they don't know how to get it, right? So that from a very basic perspective, Foundry and stuff does that. Gotham is like that on crack. It's basically smashing all of the line of command into like one app almost, right? Where before you would have to go through your whole chain of command or whatever the case is. I'm sure there's still some stuff like that because chain of command is big, but it's the decision making process is basically one step. It can be done faster in a way. So I feel like that's what that is.
The Army ran on spreadsheets and PowerPoints. Literally, when I was in 08, literally everything was about PowerPoints. Everything, literally half the job of a CEO was just creating PowerPoints. Like I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. So it's now come to a point where, and I'll send you some use cases. They're actually now, when they're talking and doing mission debriefings and stuff, they have they have Gotham put on the screen, and they're doing this is where our units are. This is what's happening in real time. They're making decisions during a meeting. Before it was let's put a PowerPoint up. Yeah, we're here. We could be there. I don't know if we'll be there by next summer. Hopefully we do this. And I'm telling you, we're moving into a much better system in terms of command and control, right? And I think even right now, there's so many businesses right now, you won't believe how many are running off of spreadsheets. They're literally still pulling up spreadsheets all over the place and be like, okay, what was our sales metrics? And then the guy would look at how many lines, rows there were. And they're like, we had 56 sales. And okay. And they're like, how do you know there's 56 sales? Well, that's because I see row number 56.
That's someone's job, man. I can't believe that. That's crazy. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's but that's scary, dude. It's like the world's strongest military is running on spreadsheets and PowerPoints. I'm going to quote that and put Kris Patel underneath it. But
how many planes do we have? Well, let me check my spreadsheet. 1, 2, 3. The spreadsheet says 50. I think we have 50 planes ready to go.
It's like that reminds me of the I'm sorry if you guys are in the comment section, but the guys who type with like one finger, I'm like, come on, man, just move with two fingers, like.
Dude,
Anyway,
I
so,
have someone who works in IT with me, right? And he still types with one finger. I mean, this guy's
oh,
smart as hell, genius. He still types with one finger, dude. I don't know. He just never got
my
over that.
my mom, I remember this to like it was yesterday when I was like 6, right? My mom and
Yeah.
like Indian people are all over IT, right? My mom was like, the one thing you do if you don't do anything, you learn how to type. And she used to like get me this keyboard, and she's like, type QU, QWERTY, and then the rest of it,
Yeah.
right? And she checked every line, and I'm like, oh my god, man, I knew how to type from when I was like 8, but
Dude,
that's
I
one
had
thing.
my dad bought me a Brother typewriter. Do you remember Brother, like the
Yeah,
company that I had
yeah,
a typewriter, right? I was like, Dad, can you buy me a computer? He's like, no, I'm gonna buy you a typewriter first. If you don't know how to type, there's no point of a computer. And I was like,
program
oh
this.
God. Yeah.
That's crazy, man. But yeah, I mean that brings to like the whole like Palantir thing. I know that they get a lot of heat from the whole we only support the West kind of situation, but there's a lot of it's a politically charged kind of situation, and I understand people's argument against it, but um, there's all I'll say on this point is there's a few reasons why like people like Kris and myself are in the West, right? There's a few reasons why or not a few. There's quite a lot of reasons why most people migrate here. They want to migrate here. It's something that is a goal for them. So, I, in my opinion, I would rather side with the free world, and that's my thought. That's my take on that. I know it might be some people's issue. I was arguing with one guy. I can already kind of guess where he's from, but he was like, "Oh, if you can't say that stuff because it's like I'm like, dude, have you lived in another country? I have. Like, I would rather be here. I would rather be here and poor than over there and rich. Like, come on, man. So,
Mhm.
but I know people give Alex Karp a lot of hate on that, but it is what it is. Like he decides to take that direction, and I'll go with him for that. But
I
from
think
a
it's a good.
profitability,
I think it's a good business decision only because most companies they're not going to work with China and Russia anyway. The Chinese don't want you to be in their ecosystem anyway. Like right now, if China said, "Hey, Google, come back, welcome back to China," you think Google's gonna say, "No, no, no, we're not coming. We want to
yeah,
protect it." No, Sundar
yeah,
Pichai would move
yeah.
to his headquarters over there in a heartbeat.
Right.
Because
He even changed
that's
his name.
that there's money. Yeah. So look, you remember Mark Zuckerberg learning
Yeah,
Chinese? You
yeah.
know what I mean? At the end of the day, they're trying to make money, dude.
Dude, they're making
So
clones of people. Did you see the Elon Musk clone? Come on, man. They're already on this. They're like, if we can't have him, we're just gonna clone him. It's all good.
yeah. No, you remember Silicon Valley where the
Yeah,
guy was Jin Yang was just writing
yeah,
it was like new Facebook,
yeah,
new
yeah,
Reddit.
yeah. That's it's so funny. It's so real. That show's amazing, man. But
Yeah,
uh,
dude, I miss that show so much, man. I miss
yeah,
that show.
I know. Me too. I don't know. Elon Musk, whatever. But yeah, man. Okay, but like with the whole, I think with this earning stuff coming up, the one thing I'm looking for, just in my opinion, is the whole partnership situation. I think they're building an entire ecosystem, right? It's not one product. This is the misconception with Palantir. But as they're building this ecosystem, I want to know what kind of kickbacks they're getting. If there isn't, then there's like kind of an issue there for me. But like, I want to know, like, how are you making money from building something that is so broad, or not broad, but so good that it's actually supporting multiple companies? I can see it a little bit where if okay, in a supply chain, if they address each and every company, right, they give this exact kind of product to each and every company, the integration between them is going to be absolutely ballistic speed, because it's the same product basically, but it's just going to a different company. So they know the protocols that they use, they know like how to transfer the data in between, and we're trying to like the whole data stuff integration, we're trying to simplify it as much as possible. But think of it this way: if you make a product and it has like a few connections or whatever, and you're the one who made it, as you sell the same product to other people, you're going to know exactly how to connect to it. That's the whole thing here. I think that might be the end game, but I do want to see some form of a kickback or something that comes from these partnerships that address multiple companies and not just one thing, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a good way of putting it. I think what it is, and that's why decentralization is going to be a big thing, right? Because this way you're not worried about one part of let's say the supply chain lying, saying, "Hey, we have this and that and the other thing." You have to have the entire ecosystem kind of move towards things. So it roots out a lot of a lot of BS, right? You get a lot more accuracy from that. I'm still learning about it, so I can't really speak much to it, but I know that right now what Palantir is doing is getting multiple things connected to the point where there can be proper analysis, but I don't. But I think it has to be they have to use decentralized ways to do it. And I think, dude, let me tell you, I hope you do that interview with Coach Strap soon, because I'm super interested in seeing that, man. I think the guy has some amazing insights. I think you've got some great insights. I want to see that happen. I think you're going to break the internet if you do that. The entire Palantwit community is going to go nuts.
Dude, I don't know, man. It's funny because I reached out to him a while ago. Actually, Coach Strap, if you're still out there, dude, like I saw your video from like I think 11 months ago, and that's why I was like, you know what, I should like, you know, help provide some more context. Like my whole thing is to dumbify it as much as possible. So yeah, I'm totally down with it. It's funny because I reached out to him like a while ago, and he's like, yeah, just reach out to me through the channel. I'm like, shit, how do I do that? Like, what do I do? Right. So I go to my channel, like, how do I reach out through the channel?
Dude, Discord. I joined his Discord. I'll send it to you. Join his Discord. He's very
he already showed me how to do it. So I'll go do that. But it was just funny for the longest time. Like, crap, I gotta meet someone who knows this guy. I don't want to keep commenting on his videos. Yeah, man.
This was good, man.
Yeah, man, we'll wrap it up here. It's been this is our longest one, and it's only our second episode. But yeah, like guys, like whoever's watching, this is the kind of stuff I really want to do. I want to expose like some of the stuff that we're doing and any of the investment things that we want to do. I want to get that out to you guys so that we're more informed as a community, not just the Palantir community, but just the investment community in general. So I hope you guys learned something from this. I know my kid's going crazy in the back, so I'll probably sign out with this. But if you guys want to follow Kris, let me get that banner up and running. That's his Twitter. Give him a follow. He's got some pretty good insights, and you know, you can always follow your boy OG Cyberfam on Twitter or watch some of my YouTube content, whatever you guys want. But I think that's it. Kris, you got any sign off notes?
Guys, hopefully next week we don't see nearly as much red, but if they are, we're bag holders together, baby. Let's ride this ship down, boy.
Just waiting for Daddy Powell to, like, you know, not screw it up, you know.
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
In the comment section. Thanks for joining, guys. We'll sign off here. Catch y'all later.
Yep.
Peace.
Peace.